I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. I got a great program today, talking with two friends of mine, two leaders in community, leaders in the world of spirit, the world of art, the world of culture, the world of community. And today we're talking about an initiative that they have maintained, an organization called Giving a Second Chance, and a project called The Sound of Gospel. My guest today is the Reverend William Pierce. William Pierce is the founder and CEO of Second Chance Outreach. It's a Twin Cities-based nonprofit that focuses on community development, on closing financial and healthcare disparities and gaps, on mentoring young African-American men and ministering to the incarcerated. He's a playwright, actor, a theatrical and musical producer and promoter. He utilizes a holistic health and wellness approach when creating or producing theatrical and musical events. And what he does is create revenue to benefit organizations that provide cancer screenings, cancer research, back to school efforts, and the like. For nearly two decades now, his productions have premiered on stages across the country and in Twin Cities, including at the Minneapolis Convention Center, the Hennepin Theater Trust, State and Orpheum Theaters, Stepping Stone Theater, Bethel University, Benson Great Hall Performing Arts Center, at Concordia University, St. Paul, at North Central University, and St. Catherine's University. Their venue is called the O'Shaughnessy. He believes that faith, love, and hope are the most essential aspects of a person's interactions with God, that family and community reflect love, and the reasons for living, hope, are all paramount concerns. He believes that education can lead to knowledge, and application of it. Knowledge and application are crucial elements to a person's Christian growth and knowledge of God. He was recently awarded the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award and an honorary Doctorate of Divinity degree. He holds a Master's of Divinity degree from Bethel Seminary and a bachelor degree in business, Christian counseling, and marketing. He's an associate minister at the Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church in Minneapolis, the assistant director of the Minnesota State Baptist Convention Associate Ministers Division, and he's a member of the National Baptist Convention media team. So good to see you, brother. How are you doing? And welcome back to the conversation.
I'm doing well. When you was reading, I was like, "Who is he talking about? Is that?"
Well, it's a good read. It's impressive information, and it's wonderful to read it, and wonderful to hear myself reading it. And I think it's wonderful for people in community to feel the flow of the story, because it is a story. It's about a continuum of engagement, and I think that's a wonderful and powerful thing. Before we bring on Sister Jevetta, rock star, superstar,
yes,
brilliant and powerful human being par excellence. That's what I call her. She represents the finest of what it is to be human, to be alive. Yes. Before I bring her on, let's have you take a second to talk about Second Chance Outreach and introduce the idea of the Sound of Gospel, the show that you're producing.
Yes. First of all, it's an honor to be on your show and an honor to work with Jevetta Steele. Second Chance Outreach, again, the name, speaks for itself, giving people a second chance. And we want to impress upon people, no matter where you are in your life, mentally, physically, financially, that if you're alive, you have a second chance, and take advantage of that. So we want to impress upon people, and we want to use, again, the slogan that we have, use an art form to transform. Use art to deliver a message, to encourage people, to inspire them to take advantage of that second chance. Although we're trying to use these events to bring people and galvanize them in one location, we want to also send a message out. It's an underlining message that we will always want to do with all our events, that there's a gap, huge gap in our community, especially with people of color, financially, educationally, and with our healthcare. So we want to use our sponsors to bring that message to reality and say, look, we want to not only talk about the issues, but we want to also provide resources. How can we help one another? And it's about taking advantage of second chance. From that perspective, growing up in Mississippi, my dad was a great singer. I know you asked before the show, am I a singer? I wish I had his voice. I grew up around quartet music, choirs, and hearing some of the work songs, some of those spirituals. And so one day, God pressed upon me to showcase that, the history of that music, because I grew up around that time. And so I wanted to showcase, I didn't grow up in, the work songs stuff, but I heard those songs. So I want to bring that back to life, to reality, to today's time, and make it relevant to who we are now and how that today we are tied to those historical aspects. So that's where the show came from, 6 years ago, but the show has evolved, and Jevetta Steele has helped me to help the show to not only, evolve, but be relevant today. How does it apply to our situation today as a people of color?
Awesome. Let me bring Jevetta Steele in. Let me say about her that she is born and raised in Gary, Indiana. She came to Minneapolis to become a lawyer, to study law, but she embarked on a solo career with music and the stage. She went on to become a member of the gospel group, her family group, the Steeles, along with her sister, Jerlyn, and 3 brothers. And her discography, her work is just phenomenal. I know her since I've been watching and a fan and admirer of Jevetta and the Steele family from when all of us arrived here, probably in the late 60s, early 70s. And just a powerhouse family and a powerhouse organization, a powerhouse individual, a person who is full of and reflective of the presence of the Spirit of God in everything she does and says and everywhere she goes. So Jevetta, so good to see you. Thank you for being here. How are you doing?
I'm good. Good to see you, Al and William. It's a beautiful day when I get to see both of you at the same time. Wow.
There
This is
we go.
amazing. It's all good.
Yes.
Well, we've got a graphic of the event coming up. And Cooper, if you put that up, I'm going to ask you to kind of walk us through what's going to be happening on February 16th and through the 18th. And describe, the concept, the feeling, the intent, and what you think the consequence will be for those of us who take advantage of the opportunity to be present.
Well, when you look at the flyer, it's a journey. It talks about where we've come from and where we're headed. It covers gospel music from Africa to today because the drum can never be left out of the conversation. And so we start the show with an African dance and then move right into how we got here, how we took music and developed it and turned it into what's now our music. It starts out with spirituals and hymns and all of the things that were a part of what was given to us once we were enslaved in this country. And we took even that, turned it around and shifted it and shaped it into something that to this day is a magical form of worship for us. So we're going to cover all of that, all the way up to the contemporary gospel that we're hearing today, the Kirk Franklins and Ty Trivet, all of that's in the show. I think for me, if you come and see this show, it will give you an opportunity to not only celebrate who we are, but whose we are, the community that we come from, the vast history of our people and the journey. There's a greater appreciation in this show, I think, for the journey than any other show that I've ever had the opportunity to be a part of, because it really does talk about every aspect of it, from the traditional to the classic to the far, far right gospel music where you listen to it and you don't know whether or not to snap your fingers and shake your body or to look up to the heavens and shout hallelujah. You just don't know. But in all of it, we feel good and we know who we belong to. And I think that that's what you'll leave this show with, a feeling of belonging and a feeling of celebration.
So who's going to be there on the show? I see on the slide there. Walk us through some of the people that are going to be, and talk about the venue. That's a beautiful place, the Cole Center. Talk about how this staging is going to come about and how it adds to, creates the venue for the magic to reveal itself.
I'm one of those people, if you turn on the lights and the microphones, these people will get the job done. I don't
Yes.
really have to work hard at this one. This is a no-brainer with Tanya Hughes Kendrick, Mondo Dickerson, Jediah Steele, Fred Steele Jr., Jermaine Thomas, Lacey Shelby, Angel Woods. These people are singing with some of the best. Darnell Davis singers are a part of this. Cornisha Garman. These are stellar. I mean, I don't need to open my mouth. I got a Shelley Caldwell on stage. I don't need to be up there. I get a chance to sit back in the audience and take it all in. And the way I'm going to stage it, it'll be bare minimal. We will allow your imagination to go in. That's the other thing. I don't want to tell the story for you. I simply want to give you a perspective on it. You can fill in the gaps if you like. So a lot of times what we found with this production over the years is that it takes people back who had the opportunity to be a part of that journey, growing up in the church. They can see themselves on that stage. They hear their mother's voices. Or when we address Dr. King and that whole section of the civil rights movement, which was absolutely raptured and enwrapped with gospel music. All of that is very present. So if you live through that and you hear these songs, it takes you back to where you were when this was happening in the 60s. So I think that that's my job, is to make sure I give it enough room to breathe and to allow each one of these artists to share what it is that they have inside of them, as well as allow room for reflection. Allow everyone in the seats to become a part of the show.
So the event is Sound of Gospel. It's an anthology depicting the rich history and evolution of gospel music. It's going to be February 16th through the 18th at the Coles Center, which is in downtown Minneapolis at 528 Hennepin Avenue, downtown. Friday and Saturday shows at 7 p.m., a Sunday show at 3 p.m. And you can look at the screen there to see what the phone number is to call for more information. But what you don't want to do is miss this. You want to be there and enjoy this. Reverend Dr. Bill, I ask my guests, and I want to ask you and Jevetta together to talk about this question. And Jevetta, you set this up already, of engaging our people in understanding both who we are and whose we are. And I love, Jevetta, that you talked about this, talks about the drum, the heartbeat, and what that signifies in our understanding of existence itself, right? And how it's something that we don't forget, that we don't move without, because it's our heart. It's our heart beating.
It is.
If our heart is beating, we are connected to the drum. But the drumming practice really brings us back to the sense of something coming from nowhere, from silence into sound. It's creation itself. It's the movement. So I'm going to just stop there, Reverend Bill. Where am I going with this? What do you think when I'm talking this way about our sense of creation, our sense of existence, and the sense of eternity that our present reflects? And its ability to go back and at the same time go forward while being fully present in the now. What do you think?
Jevetta talked about music, and sometimes it's hard to tell where some of the music we listen to, you want to shake your body or whatever. But that goes back to Africa. The creation of music. When we talk about that beat, that bass, that drum beat, because we are creative. African Americans, we are creative beings. We always been creative when it comes to music, but that sound, that beat, it makes you move. It does something to your soul. And music, I've read once that music is a universal language. I don't care who you are, where you're from. If you hear it, it'll make you move. It can make you sad. It can make you rejoice. It can make you cry. It can make you laugh. So we going back. And Jevetta talk about this journey. We're going all the way back, and people will be caught up in the journey. That's the whole aspect. That's the whole understanding. We want to take people on this journey, roller coaster ride. You're gonna have some highs. You're gonna cry. You're gonna laugh. Because of that. First, we're gonna start with that beat. that
Yeah.
drum beat, because that's the essence. When you were born, they want to make sure that your heart is beating. So that beat is life, that drum beat. And then we're just going to go on this journey. And I love it. Now, for me, if you ask me, you didn't ask, what's my favorite part? It's, that,
what's your
I have
favorite
so
part?
many. Yes, but it's the quartet section, the quartet, because that's where I grew up. And the civil rights movement. Those two parts, because for me, the civil rights movement is almost like the middle of the whole show. And with the civil rights movement, music was so intricately woven into our efforts, and what we're trying to accomplish. It was music. It was music that motivated the people. It was music, and going back even to slavery time, it was the music that they used to encourage one another, to say it's going to be okay. I'm saying? Although yes, we are under the oppression. We have the master's foot on our neck, but the songs we sing, they use the song to speak the word that they knew from the word of God. So it was the music that we use to encourage, to uplift, to motivate, and to inspire. It's music.
And I believe it's the second strongest form of communication. There's speech and there's music. And I often tell people when we're talking about music in the church, I always feel like music sets the stage for us to connect to God.
Yes.
So that we can hear what's going to be spoken. It makes our heart tender. And because I believe all life started in Africa, I believe it's very organic for us. It is not something that we have to fabricate or figure out. It comes naturally. I tell my children all the time, 2 things I never had to teach you, which was to walk and to dance. They're going to do that no matter what. And even when we find Christ in our lives, we don't stop dancing. We just switch partners.
That's right.
So now you've got this whole dance thing that happens not only in your general life for celebrations or for grieving as they do in New Orleans, but we also dance in celebration of our God. And so that's so important to me to help people understand. We haven't stopped dancing. We've just changed partners when it comes to the church. And now we dance because of our God and our love for him and our love for life. And so this show, it starts at the beginning in Africa with the drum, with all of that passion and energy, and it carries it straight through the show. And so I'm very excited to be a part of this piece and to watch it evolve. I'm trying to make it better and different each time we do it. Each iteration has something fresh about it. And once again, we're going to try and do that again at the Cole Center.
Let me ask you, Jevetta, to sort of lean back into the recesses of your mind and spirit and your imagination, and imagine, if you would, the artist that you are, the beginning, and the arrival or the discovery or the creation of both music and the word. What was it like? If you had to tell somebody how it began, how would you describe that?
How it began for me as a personal artist, or you mean for this show?
No, I mean for humanity.
I believe it happened simultaneously.
Okay.
I don't believe that there is breath that doesn't have something to do with sound, the audible presence of God. I think it's equivalent to seeing God through the wind or through a storm or whatever is going on. However you see God, you're also experiencing it audibly. And that's why I believe music is integral.
I love that. So speak as though you're speaking 4,000 years ago. What you just said it, but say it again. In the way that you're telling somebody what you're experiencing in sound and in word and in acknowledging and reflecting the presence of the Creator. How does that sound?
For me,
if you're you 4,000 years ago, yes.
It would sound like, I love you, versus I love you. I hear the notes of it. I hear the extension of I it rings out in me versus
Mm.
a word, how it, no,
Mhm.
it's still the vibration of it is
Mhm.
carried across that air.
Mhm.
And so for me,
Mhm.
when I think of God and when I focus on it, I hear the tones of it. I hear the rhythm of it. I hear the passion of it. I don't even have to see the words. I can hear it. I think that's one of the things that I love about the Bible, where it talks about hide the word in your heart. When I
Mhm.
hide it in my heart, it's covered by my ears
Mhm.
because I can sing it back to myself. I can hear it in the tonality of music that kind of flows. Like out of your belly shall flow rivers of living water. That's what it is. Music is that living water for me. And I can tap in at any time. And I think it has always existed. It's always existed in Jevetta before I could give it words. It was present.
And Dr. Bill, let me ask you to take the same question, but speak to 4,000 years from now.
From now,
Having, yes, yeah, and so I'm in a sense trying to deal with the question of eternity.
yes.
Where we are right now is in the middle of forever, right?
Yeah.
And so I wanted you to talk about the power of the Spirit, the presence of God in our lives in ways that you imagine human beings, those that follow us, will both express, experience, celebrate, and what um, uh, do life. You know, I'm trying to think of the right word for it. It's not coming, but in ways that they reflect what life can be, is, and means. Where do you see it going? And,
I
and,
think
and and your question informed by your appreciation of the civil rights movement, what the purpose
right.
of that was, and what the accomplishments were, and what the eventual 20 generations from now proof of that will be.
And you used the word that I just want to camp on is purpose.
Mhm.
You know, I think we've lost a sense of purpose for life. And how do we get that back? How do we find a way to understand that we're not just here for ourselves? And that's what music does. You know, if you go back to, you talk 4,000 years ago, who was the greatest musician? It was Satan was up there, singing and playing. So now we have to figure out a way, and that's why music's so important, art is so important. It's a way to bring people together.
Mhm.
So my understanding of the Spirit of God, God equips us. He created us in a way that we are relational beings. We were created to be in a relationship. We've lost that sense. There's so many broken relationships. So we have to figure out a way. What is our purpose? What was I created for? First of all, I was created to worship God, and that's how music come into play. The whole essence of God creating a human being. He didn't need us. But I get lonely. I would like to have somebody to say, "Hey, how you doing? Speak to me," so we speak to God. So we have to understand what is our purpose as human beings. Who is our creator? Jevetta talked about now who we are, but whose we are. We are God, and we got to get back to understand whose we are. And when people look at our legacy, that know that we didn't just exist, we lived. We lived with a purpose. And every day I wake up, I want to change someone's life. I want to have an impact in a good way. So wait, when people and Jevetta mess with me, but I had a birthday party not too long ago. The man, the myth, the legacy. I want to leave a legend. I want to leave a legacy behind me because my dad left a legacy. When people 20, 20 years from now, 200 years from now, they said William Pierce did something that we can look back at now and use it to encourage us. That's the whole point of living, to have your life mean something so people can look back and use what your life, and then they're impacted by it. I just preached a funeral yesterday. An individual was 98 years old, and his life, it was a book. This was the first time ever that someone wrote a eulogy for me. I didn't have to write the eulogy. His whole life. The one thing that I learned about this individual, his name was Sylvester Plunkett. He went to World War II, went back home to Bend, Mississippi, traveled to Chicago, got a job because he didn't want to be on the sharecropper, be a
Mhm.
sharecropper.
Mhm.
But he went back to get his family.
Mhm.
And he showed his dad the check, what he was made, made it. Oh, that's good for a year. He said, no, I made that in 1 week. He said, when we leaving? He reached back to get his family and we don't do that anymore. The purpose of life is for me, God to bless me so I can be a blessing to someone else. So 4,000 years, people, again, reciprocated. People are blessing each other. We're not worried about what I'm getting. I'm worried about what I got so I can give it. So God so loved the world that he gave his own son. The word that's written said, God so loved the world in this manner. So we should love each other in this manner, that we so willing to go out and help somebody else. That's the legacy we should live. 4,000 years from now, people can look back and say, we are here because somebody cared. That's our purpose.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful. That's great. Well, the event, The Sound of Gospel, is going to be coming up on February 16th through 18th at the Coles Center in downtown Minneapolis. And we're talking about that today with Reverend William Pierce, who's the founder and CEO of Second Chance Outreach, and Jevetta Steele, who is producing, I believe, is that the right title? The Sound
Directing,
of Gospel, or
yeah.
directing the Sound of Gospel.
All that.
And I'm just loving the conversation because I love to talk about the process of creativity, the process. And so, Jevetta, I mean, maybe you can tell me, and Brother Bill, you can too, stories that that you remember where you've got a program, you've got a plan, you've got a beginning and a middle and an end, but something happens in the middle of it, and everybody and everything is caught up. Transformation is occurring as you perform. Talk about that. I know you go through that all the time, but I think it's always worth talking about, observing and recognizing it. What do you think?
Yeah, I want to talk before you talk, Jevetta, and how Jevetta became a part of this thing. And that's what, because I had a plan. When I first wrote the show, I directed the show the first time. Actually, the first couple of times I directed the show. But I had a plan to take the show to another level. And there was only one person. I tell her this all the time. I said, there was one person I know could take my baby. And, almost like I was, the baby was an orphan. I gave it to Jevetta. I said, Jevetta, I need you to raise my baby up. And I know what the baby can become, but I just can't do it the way I want to do it. I gave it to Jevetta. And so the plan, and I saw the first time we did it, it was a great show. But that second time in 2020, I saw that evolution of that show, how it evolved into something. I said, oh my God, this show is powerful. It's because I believed in someone else and trusted them enough to say, look, take this show, Jevetta, and take it to the highest level it could ever go. And that transformation of that show and continually evolved. And I'm amazed. I mean, I'm awe of not only what it's done, the show itself, but how it's impacting people. That's what I'm amazed by. Now I'll let Jevetta talk. Go ahead, Jevetta.
Yeah, I think, we run into challenges as you go through the journey, but part of those experiences help shape it as well. I don't think you can have a constant smooth sailing through everything. I think that mountain and valley experience is necessary for growth. And so, sure, we had some challenges trying to figure out how to get everybody in and out of costumes quickly, or how are they going to stay on stage the entire time where no one leaves the stage. Maybe if they need water or something, how do we get all of that done? And for me, it's about brevity. How quickly can I say what I need to say with impact and be done?
Yes.
I believe in that. There's no intermission. We start and then we finish. And we want to leave the audience wanting more. I want them to feel like, wait, what? We're done? Yeah. Hit. Thank you. Do you remember? Do you feel good? Have you covered the gambit? I want you to be as exhausted as the performers are. Because again, that music, there is no barrier. That transition of from going from audience member to, oh my God, that's my aunt so-and-so. Or, oh my God, I remember that as a child when that happened. I was at blah, 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 blah. But you don't get to stay in it.
So while you're on the stage as a performer or director watching from the side, do you see people getting it one by one, or do you see something happening en masse across the audience as if a wave of some sort has come through or come from? And same thing among the musicians, artists, on stage, as they go through their prepared and planned presentations, sometimes something happens that moves what they're doing into a different dimension. And it's as if they forgot themselves and became something different, right? And a whole new
Yes.
thing is working, and that thing that's working has a power that is almost indescribable. I call it a healing power,
Yes.
a reach, that is both invisible and palpable. You don't see it, but you see it.
Correct.
Yeah, and so how does that look from where you are?
Yeah, it happens in waves. You use the word perfectly, wave.
Yes.
That's exactly what happens. And on the stage, sometimes the revelation of each of those segments happens to them independently. My great niece is in the show, Fred's granddaughter. She's only 20 years old. She was not there when the whole revolution happened. And so we go out of her song, which is I'll Take You There, into the shooting and killing of Dr. King.
Wow.
For her, she was like, okay, how do I sing this song? And I chose a song that Moms Mabley is known for. And it's a cappella. It's just her. And initially she struggled with it. She was like, okay, Auntie. And then I showed it to her. I said, hear the words, hear what you're saying. Can anybody hear? See my old friend Martin. What would that sound like out of a child who just found out her hero was murdered because he was good and righteous? What would that feel like in your body? And she just looked at me. She went, oh my God. I said, now cry out. She was like, what? I said, the universe is listening. Who are you trying to reach? Are you asking the ancestors? Or are you asking me? Who are you talking to? I need you to reach all the way into the universe and ask that question and find out what comes of it. What comes of the answer? And before she knew it, she was just emoting this song, just wailing, tears running down her face. And as soon as she got done, the next line after her is, but still we press on. The audience was with her, but she had a revelation. So it's like ping pong. It's just happening. And it's in real time, and it's futuristic, and it's reflective all at the same time. And music allows us that avenue. And I'm so grateful that I get a chance to be a part of it from the front end, and I witness it on the back end because I'm sitting out in the audience. And there are times in the show where we actually had to stop. I mean, folks are getting happy and screaming and jumping up and down, and we stop. And the cast is falling apart, and I'm like, that's right, let it happen.
Wow.
It's organic. And then they'll start a reprise. They're not done with it. They're still resting in it, and then they get freed of it, and boom, they're ready to go to the next level. So
and it's not so much that they're not done with it, but it's not done with them.
Correct.
Exactly.
And once the spirit arrives, the spirit has its way and will direct everything, every sound, every breath.
Yes.
And there's a certain harmony, that occurs out of what might have been perceived as chaotic. All of a sudden, the beauty beneath it emerges crystal clear.
Absolutely. Organized chaos.
It's
my favorite thing.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful. And Al, you're from a musical family. You know how that is. And so I've got a stage full of artists who become a family, who are already extended family simply because of the color of our skin and our history. And you put all that magic on stage and then say, let it have its way, and they're available to it. Ooh-wee. It's on and popping, and we have a great time. And when it's over with, they're exhausted, the audience is exhausted, and all of us are just beaming. Beaming with joy.
Because you know something.
We know something.
You know something.
And if you didn't know, now you know.
Now you know.
You just learned something, or you saw yourself, you had an opportunity to reflect. Something has happened. And there's nothing like that.
So, Bill, if we can teach ourselves to articulate, to explain, to examine this experience of truth-telling, of the presence, the indefatigable nature of the spirit, what can and will that do to enable our building of new futures? And the new future that you described a minute ago, Dr. Bill, was a future in which every individual lives to make someone else's life better, enable, enhance, support the journey of other people. That's her or his mission. And he's clear. How do we teach that better so that it happens the way you envision?
Well, I think it's less about teaching and more about surrendering.
Ah.
Because as Jevetta just eloquently explained or spoke about how we're caught up.
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking about spirituality,
Mm-hmm.
you can't explain it. You can't teach that. It's about being caught up. It's about releasing and relinquishing your spirit, your will. And I have to go back to Jesus. I'm a preacher. When he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, he said, he thought about what he had to endure, but he said, not my will, but thy will be done. So I think we get so caught up in what we as individually have to endure instead of saying, God, not what I want, but what you want. And I'm going to submit and surrender my will to you. And if we did that collectively as a people, then we have no problem in helping each other, because it's not what I want. It's not what I'm trying to accomplish. And it's like, it's symbolic to what's happening here on the stage, because people are caught up. They're not trying to get caught up, but they're so comfortable. They have released, and they have become a part of the show. So we become a part of life and become a part of the spirit. Then we're not trying to do anything. It just happens. And as it happens, now God takes us to another level, to another level, to another level. Now I'm showing more love. I'm trying to reach out more. I'm trying to do better because I'm caught up. I'm not trying anymore. And I think we have to stop trying and allow God to do. Because we're not human beings. We're not human doings. We're human beings. We got to be. We try to do too much. We just got to be. Be like God. Be like Christ. And if we do that, I think that would solve a lot of problems we have, because we stop trying. We rely so much on our education, so much on the things we accomplish, and just rely on God. Submit, surrender. And I think that would solve a lot of our issues.
Well, this is a good time to offer the invitation again.
But
Dr. Bill, why don't you invite people? I think we've got a slide to pull up giving the details. Pull it up, Cooper, and Dr. Bill, talk about invite people to show up.
Yes. Hey, listen, as Jevetta again stated, you do not want to miss this show. It's a show like no other show. You're invited to come to Cole Center. You either go to the Cole Center .com and go and get your ticket. Please get your ticket, because tickets are selling quick, and people are coming to the show because they want to experience, not see. This is an experience, and you have to be there to experience it. You can't take anyone's word for it. Come and enjoy it, and I guarantee you it'll be an experience like no other.
That's awesome. Let me go back to your comments. I was just intrigued when you said you yesterday preached the funeral of a gentleman, a brother who was 90 plus years old.
He was 97. He would have turned 98 last week. Yes.
Talk about him. Talk about both him, his life, God, and that experience. I think that's rich. If you don't mind.
The individual, matter of fact, we talk about music. He was a musician. He played with Little Walter. He traveled. He was a blues musician as well. And so here it is. He was given a guitar. No one knew he could play. He just started playing it. He grew up, and one of the stories that his son shared with me, that one thing he hated about the South, that him and his friends would go into town, and the landowner would take pride in shooting over their heads and laughing to see how fast they could run. And one day the U.S. Army showed up, and he was drafted into World War II. He did 10 months, a 10-month tour, and got out. He came home, and one of the things he had when he came out, he had 2 Colt 45s. He wore them on his side, and when he dared the old landowner to say something to him, because now he's legal. You know what I'm saying? He got his guns on his side, so he said, "Say something to me now," because at one time he couldn't defend himself. But he only could do that when he had the uniform on. When he took the uniform on, he's not protected anymore from his standpoint. But one of the things he would not settle for where he was at. And we can't, as a people, settle. We have to want more. And I think we have lost that desire to want more since that civil rights movement and a few years afterwards. He wanted more, not just for himself, but his family. Moved to Chicago. He worked 3 and 4 different jobs. Ended up moving. He lost his job. Ended up now he could fix anything. He went into security, and then he came to Minnesota. He started a limousine business. He worked. This man worked most of his life, and we have every excuse not to work now. We're losing people. My cousin was 30 years old. This man was 98. He had a desire to live and a will to live, but not only that, he had a desire to inspire another generation, his great grandkids, and he was able to reach back at them. And all the stories this family, they were so respectful on time, but they got up and told all these great humorous stories about this man. And it was a fascinating story. I mean, the whole thing about him going to World War II, surviving that, and Normandy, he was on Normandy Beach, where all the things taking place in World War II. But this man, he experienced life and experienced abundantly. That's the name of his eulogy, Abundant Life. And we all should want one life, because Christ came and said he gave us life, but he gave us a life abundantly. And that's superseding what we can ever experience or think. We want life abundantly. And this show will show you that. You're going to experience abundant life in this show, and how we as a people have fought over these years. But now we're not just giving up. We're not selling. We're not compromising. We're still fighting our own way to move forward. That man, his life was amazing. And I was honored to be a part of the eulogy, to be able to share something about a man that was so amazing. And last thing, he gave his life to Christ at a young age. He denounced Christ because of what he saw in the war. But in the late 80s, he gave his life back to Christ.
Got it.
Full circle. Because without Christ, there's no abundance of life.
Talk about your dad, his musical career, and your family predecessors. What's the Pierce lineage? Do you spend time thinking about your grands and great grands and great grands? How much do you know about them?
My great grandmother and her sisters had a group called the Pierce family. And you told me I could sing. When I say talk, you told me back. You told me I could sing. My grandmother and them could sing. And my grandmother's favorite song was "Rock Me Cherry Till I Get Home." I'm going home on the morning train. And so they were a great singing group. And my dad, what Jevetta talked about, there was a plan for my dad. God has a plan for him. But my dad, he, like many of us, didn't find his way till later on in his life. But once he found his way, my dad could outsing my grandmother and all of them. He was a phenomenal singer.
Wow.
And see, God, I think he kept that gift from me because he knew that I couldn't handle it. Because I'm serious, because I wouldn't be able to handle it. I mean, when I go back home, everybody, they see me, they say, "You look like Floyd. Are you Floyd's son? Can you sing like him?" They always ask me that. And he was a great singer. The Mighty Clouds of Joy asked him to be a part of their group. He started his own choir. They have the Pierce and Washington Choir in Mississippi. They still honor him. And places I go, they still recognize my dad because of the impact. He was a loving man. His heart, he would give you the shirt off his back, but he could sing. And so what I decided to do, I said, since I can't sing as well as him, Jevetta, I decided to use art in a way to tell the story. I can't sing the story, but I can tell the story and incorporate singing into the story and still get the job done. That's what led me into promoting, getting involved in music. I was in high school band. My dad inspired me to do something with my life and using art to do it. So yes.
Are you connected to your African history, your African roots?
Not in the sense of where I came from, but so I answer this in this way. Although I'm not connected in a way where I understand where I came from, But because the way I live, there is a theoretical connection where I know that somehow, some way, I came from Africa, and I allowed that understanding to live out through me by the way I treat my fellow brother and sister, and by the things I do in my community, because Africa is a community, and we looked out for one another. So those roots, somehow they embedded in me, and they come out through the way I live. And I think we all should do that. Allow our ancestry, the understanding of what they meant back then, for us to live that out in our own lives.
Jevetta,
And
let
I
me
think
ask
there's a connection as well.
the same question. Talk about your family. I know I can never get tired of hearing about the Steeles, you and your sisters and brothers. Talk about them, just about, first of all, and then talk about the shoulders that you all stand on. And then my question always leads back to, are you aware of your African history, your African lineage? What does it mean to you, if that's something that is important to you? I know that your family does work around the world and in Africa, so I know it's important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the Steeles. Well, we've been singing forever. We're part of the furniture here in the Twin Cities. We've been around a very long time. We migrated here from Gary, Indiana, and we started with my father as children singing. He was a singer and musician. His siblings all sang and played instruments. His father was a singer and sang with all of his siblings. They all recorded, traveled. And my grandmother on my mother's side, we found out, was offered a contract right before Mahalia. Same contract, same company. And my grandfather said no. So my grandmother didn't get into music like that on my mother's side, but on my father's side, they embraced it. So it's always been a part of who we are. As a family, music is at the centerpiece. And of course, when my father died, we all kind of separated and went our separate ways and went off to college and all of that. There's 10 years between JD and I. So I was only 10 when my father died, and JD was an adult, and they were developing their lives at that time. And then JD moved to Minnesota, and then Fred followed him. Geraldine fell in love with a man from here and ended up moving here. I came here to go to St. Thomas, and then Billy, mom just said, "You got to get out of here. You're grown. Get out." And so here comes Billy to the Twin Cities. And so we put the family group back together. Right before I arrived, it was JD, Fred, Geraldine, and Ginger Commodore. And they were singing in town as the Steeles, as the JD Steele singers, doing only gospel at that time. They won the state fair. Talent show, took that money, did a demo, and the rest is sort of history. I came on board, and we've just been doing it ever since. And we decided that diversity was important to us. So theater, music, the recording industry, commercials, whatever was an opportunity or an avenue to express ourselves artistically, we took it. And so, yes, it's a part of our lineage for sure. And today, I would dare say that it continues because our children and some of our children's children are in the industry now. They have graduated from college, but all of them are using their degrees somehow to make music, make magic. So we are very, very fortunate.
Well, it's got to be amazing for your children and your grandchildren, the next generation, to have the benefit of the knowledge that you all have created and developed in perfecting your craft, because you have had, and I think, opportunities that your parents and grandparents, the ones you named, pioneering as they were phenomenal to have done what they could do against the odds and within the circumstances that were really oppressive, but they persevered, right? And they actually triumphed. And so you have that story, that testimony, plus you have specific knowledge and tools and training about the way the world works today in technology and business and relationships. So that's got to be a powerful thing for you to bequeath to your children and grandchildren. And so, I just shudder to think of what they're going to do with it, because there are no limits.
We're waiting to see. It's very strange. We live in a world today, and I think this is the great challenge of the African American community. There are voices that are far more prominent and have constant access to our children in ways that we don't. This world of Facebook and YouTube, and they are exposed to so much information and a lot of what I would say illusions about everything. Nothing seems, they search for the truth. They don't know what to believe. And because we're relegated to the area of where you guys are old now, it's different. It's different now, Mom. You don't understand. The record industry is different. And I sit back and say, contracts haven't changed, honey. Big print giveth and little print taketh away. So there are some truths to our industry that never change. But how, or the opportunity for avenues, yes, there are different opportunities. However, the spirit of excellence is still to be maintained, and you have still got to know the contractual part of it all. You've got to engage in that piece. And so if I can just get my children to get their arms around that, I'm happy. And I let them say whatever they want to say about me being old fogey. And I tell them all the time, I'll even take them to the room and say, tell me about my gold records again. How did I get there? And they're, well, Mom, I'm like, no. Tell me how that happened.
Yeah.
Because at the end of it all, as talented as you may see me as, at the end of the road, it was divinity. There was something divine about what it was I was supposed to do with my life. Being a lawyer was a good idea, but the God idea for my life was to sing. And I had to embrace that. And I keep telling my children the same thing. What is the God idea for your life? That's the one that's going to work. And the avenue in which you acquire it is integral. You cannot go out here and do all of the foolishness in this world and get it done. I gave my children back to God when they were born. That little ceremony called christening is very real for me. I presented them just as Sarah did her child in the Bible. God, this is my child that you've loaned to me, but I submit it back to you. And I ask that you guide their steps just like you guided mine. And so I keep telling them there's certain things that will not fare well for you. If you get off of this track, this is the avenue. The demand and requirement for excellence is present. You must get this done. If you're going to choose this avenue, you want to do something else, I can't speak to it other than to say it still requires that there's an elevation in thought and in spirit and in soul that you have to apply. And so I'm pushing my children, and I try to quiet and silence some of the illusions that are around them. You know, reality TV has changed everything. These kids really believe this stuff. And I keep telling them, I said, honey, when they turn the lights off, these people have to go home and figure out their lives.
It's a set. It's a set that they're on.
Take it all down, and they take off the costumes, and they go home and put on some jeans and sweatshirts, and they have to go home and clean their bathrooms just like you do. So you have to get into the reality of it all, but they don't see that behind the scenes. So I'm trying to pull them along with me so that they get to see the hard work behind the scene that makes that magic happen. So my great niece, working with her in this show, she just stares at me. There are times I catch her just kind of like, and I go, yeah, how about that? You got to stop and think about that, don't you? She goes, wow, Auntie, okay. So for me, I get a chance to pay it and play it forward with her being very present, as I did with my children. I dragged my daughter all over the world with me when I was touring. And she got
let me ask you that. That's what's you're reading my mind. That was the next question. You have world experience, and what has that given you in terms of awareness, understanding, a sense of connectivity? And that leads back to the prior question about your sense of being a descendant of Africa. But tell me some stories about traveling. What's been the scope of your travel, and what has that travel meant to you as an artist, performer, and as a human being?
You know what? You get a chance to realize that in the big picture, we're all the same. We really are. We're just human beings out here trying to figure it out. And I also believe that I think that's where I got very clear that, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience versus a human having spiritual experiences. Got it. So that every place that I've ever been was intentional. Even if I didn't set that up, I didn't make it happen. I just followed the path. So I'm clear that every country I've ever stepped foot in, every time I hit a stage, it was deliberate and that God had something to do with it. And there's a plan. Somebody's life was to be touched. And as my sister Geraldine always says, we're just mailmen. We just deliver the package.
Here it
God
is.
has given us something. We deliver it and then let it go. Somebody
Mhm.
else may reap the harvest of it all, or somebody else may come along and water that field. But we're going to deliver the seed. We're going to plant it, keep moving. And
Any
that's
great stories of international travel? What
oh
comes to
my,
mind? What do you share with people as stories on the road?
I think for me, one of my greatest experience was when I found out that Calling You had gone gold in France. I
Mm,
didn't know. I was
mm,
here in America doing my thing and was asked to come over and do a 2-week promotional tour. And I said,
mhm,
sure. But I had a small baby.
mhm,
And so I asked, I said, well, I need to bring my mother. And they were like, absolutely. Well, when we arrived, we get to the airport and the gate that we're at, we get a message, Madame Steele, please go to gate, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay. So we take the baby and my mom and we go to this gate. There's no one there.
mm,
And I'm thinking, why would they tell me to do this? All of a sudden, I see about 7 people running in my direction. I mean, flying.
mm.
Madame Steele, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? And I'm like, I got a message to come down to this gate. They're like, oh my God, it's a setup. Let's go, let's go, let's go. They snatch up my baby. They're taking us out this side door. And I'm thinking, what is going on? And
Mm,
out of nowhere, paparazzi is everywhere,
mm,
taking pictures. Madam, Steele, this way. I'm like, what's going on? I
mhm.
get into this car and they announce, Madam, your song is #1. Your picture is everywhere. You cannot move about by yourself anymore.
Mhm,
They start introducing me to people once we get to the destination. This
mhm.
is your security guard. This is your publicist. This is your makeup artist. Here's your schedule. This is your personal assistant. This is the
Whoa.
nanny for your mother. This is security for your mother. This is the babies. I'm going, hold it.
To what?
Wait, what are you talking about? And once I get to the hotel, that's when I realize, oh my God, I'm a star in
Mm,
this country? And they're like,
mm,
absolutely. You
mm,
don't move around by yourself. There is no
mm.
such thing. And I'm on a hotel floor by myself.
Oh.
No one else can get off on that floor
Mm,
but me, my daughter, my baby, and my mother,
mm.
and my security team.
Oh
And
boy, oh
so
boy.
that was crazy. I put in 14 hours a day.
Mhm.
I didn't have a life of my own. I couldn't go shopping by myself. The salespeople wouldn't sell me anything without buying an autograph, or I'd
Yeah.
walk to a restaurant and everybody would hit their glasses because
Mm,
there were pictures of me everywhere,
mm,
billboards, every magazine. They were like showing me. I'm telling you, you cannot move about by yourself. And I couldn't get my arms around it. I'm too,
oh.
the Steels, we hug everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
Where I was coming from, I was like, I'm meeting fans. Oh, honey, thank you. Merci, merci. I'm just excited and having a great time. And they're informing me that's not an option. You
Mhm.
don't do that. So I'm on a show with Eddie Grant, Olivia Newton-John.
Mm,
And after the show, there are all these fans around the gate. And I
mhm.
decide I miss connecting with my fans. I'm going
Yeah.
around this gate. Didn't
Mhm.
say anything to my security.
Mhm.
And I went, hello, everybody. I love you. Thank you so much. And they started charging towards me. And my security goes, run. And we're hauling, trying to get to the car. We get in the car and I'm shaking because I've never seen any. And they're hitting the car and I'm freaked out. And he said to me, Madam Steele, this is not an option.
Mhm.
Let us take care of you.
Well,
And I had to think and figure out, can I live like this?
Mm.
I don't know that I can live like this. So for
mhm,
me, that's one of my greatest memories. And then getting on the plane coming home, when I
mhm.
got home, it was, hey, Miss Jevetta, kids running up and down my block. And I'm thinking, night and
Whoa.
what a difference in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. Oh.
And so for me, I have learned that people are just people. And that if
Yeah.
you can touch them and reach them right where they are, then you've done what you're put on this planet to do. And I'm so grateful that I have an avenue that's next to spoken word that I can touch your heart. And I don't even
Mm.
have to necessarily be present. I can do it through a record. I
Yeah.
can do it through a television performance and never having met those people, but leave an indelible mark that God is alive and well. And I get to share that with someone. I think
Yeah.
it's a powerful experience. And to see that same opportunity being passed down to my children and my grandchildren are showing signs of it. It's like, oh my gosh,
That's amazing. That's
it's very
amazing.
present.
Can you give us a little of Calling You? That's a lot to ask you, but that would just cap that story. So
Oh my
beautiful.
gosh. Oh Lord, I didn't warm up. Okay. I am calling you.
That's cool. All right.
Oh my gosh,
Listen,
I never
I'm
sing that.
loving this. Thank you both so very, 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 very
Thank
Yes.
you,
much.
Thank
Al. It's
you,
such a pleasure.
Al.
Appreciate you. Let's make the invitation again. Reverend Bill, why don't you invite people to the sound of gospel? And we'll close with that invitation.
Listen, come out one, come out all. Again, bring your cats and your dog. Please come on out. Hey, listen, as long as they can sit in the seat, we'll take everybody. You don't want to miss this show. You please come out, get your ticket. Go
Yeah.
to thecowcenter.com and get your ticket while they're available, because they're going fast. We want you to experience the show. We want you to see not only the work we put into it, but we want to see the work that we as a people have been putting into life in so many years, and the impact. This is for everyone. It's not just for people of color. This is for anyone and everyone, because our story is intertwined with everybody else's story. And we want to share that story in a way that you can feel it, and it causes you to want to do something with your life.
That's it. Thank you so much. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.